How are we doing? How are we doing? How are we doing? This one is going to be, I'm going to try and make it as short as possible. I know that's going to be impossible because of my talking habit, but I'm going to try my best. Maybe I won't smoke during this time around just to see what's going on. So I'll start off with what I usually start off with, where I start out, and that is in the 90s. We didn't, not to be like, woe is me or whatever, but if you didn't have the equipment, you just didn't have the equipment. You didn't have it. There was no downloading a recording station to your tablet that already, it just happens to be powerful enough to run the recording studio or your computer. Matter of fact, you probably didn't have a computer that was hooked up to the internet at all. So you either had the mixing board or you didn't. You had the recording station or you didn't. That's not to say anything other than I really respect what we have now. I appreciate and really respect what we have. And I'm learning along with what they're learning because I was rooted in the hardware. And what they're finding is that as time goes on, the people interacting with the plugins don't have any experience with the studio hardware. So they can just make it look like whatever. Often like shit. Because honestly, when you're talking about audio, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. Aside from to the observer. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'll take a model that is a emulation of a compressor that is 80% accurate and looks very much like the real thing over one that's 100% accurate and looks like shit. I just will, because first off, there's no such thing as 100% accurate, because you're talking about analog. Analog gear, one of the beautiful things about analog gear is no two pieces sound exactly the same. Not exactly. They'll sound similar, they have a similar warmth and texture and whatever, but there's certain amounts of solder or whatever, wiring, whatever you do, whatever the little variance is between the two. A little extra wiring as opposed to like a little bit shorter wiring causes all the difference. Especially in the analog world. But those are like little things that are like the techie people, the really geeky people would recognize, but like the audience at home isn't going to even notice. They may get a feeling a little bit better, a little bit better feeling, but they're not going to really notice the depth of the vocal or the realism of the guitar amp. Because the difference between a real guitar amp and an 80 to 85% emulated guitar amp. Matter of fact, because of the digitality of it and the perfectionism that they put into it, that's kind of built into the 1-0, there's no maybe, because of that, the average listener probably prefers, who's not into, the average musician prefers that warm, nice sound of a tube amp, where the average listener prefers that smooth, easygoing, clear, if that makes sense, because they're not listening for the same things you're listening for. The flow chart of a song from writing to the person. Expensive ass instruments, years of training, years of lessons. The best instruments on the market. Going into one of the most expensive mixing boards on the planet, like in Dave Grohl's case, like a $75,000 mixing board. That then goes into a like Apple or a tape deck, or something. There's more money. Then that goes into speakers. There's like they're like a couple $1,000s per speaker. On and on and on, just all this extra money, just to be compressed down to a 5 meg MP3 and listen to on the listener side through earbuds that probably came with the device they're listening on, because they just don't care. It's not a slide on anybody, but it's just like you get free earbuds, and I know a lot of people that unless you kind of like get them used to listening to a hi-fi system, they'll come in and go, I mean, it sounds good. Mainly they'll be like, it sounds loud, you know? Like you don't hear the clarity, like, oh yeah, it sounds really clear. But I mean, it's really loud. Like you can get it that loud because it's so clear. Any imperfections in the sound cause each decibel up amplifies that imperfection until it starts to crack and starts to break up and starts to have problems, and then blowing speakers, bad problems with distortion and stuff. So, I mean, if you don't believe that I'm talking about the people who prefer the digital version, try listening to singers back then versus now. Most people want that auto-tuned sound. They either shoot for it, they use a tuner, they use something that's even a mild tuner to help them get the pitchiness out. Whatever, I don't care. I prefer to stick natural. I'm pitchy, and that proves that I'm a human being. You know, I leave my mistakes in there because it proves that I'm a human being. That I'm not a robot. I'm not a jukebox. I'm not whatever. It has mistakes in there. If they're too bad and they hinder the song in any kind of way, then yeah, I might redo it. But as long as it's not, as long as it's just kind of like, anything that you would do in a regular gig or something like that, and nobody would really notice, I don't care. I don't give a shit. Yeah, and like I said, in the studio, this microphone, the studio version, the industry standard version, would be $4,000. This was like $60, but it's the same architecture, just different and cheaper parts. It's got great quality. I love it. I love this thing, man. And it works great for what I need to do. Record vocals in a high quality. I have the Behringer C1 also, so that one also does really well as the B1. I have some other condenser mics and stuff, but this is about VST plugins. The great thing about VST plugins is that once you have your digital audio workstation, your DAW, you can now load almost every DAW. Digital audio workstation comes with a suite of plugins. Usually everything you need to get going for free. Usually like an EQ. Nowadays it's usually like a variable EQ. You can choose what kind. Like I have an EQ and you can choose like if it's a British or American. You can pick different profiles of the EQ. They must always have some kind of compressor, some compression, dynamics, compression, some kind of limiter, some kind of loudness, volume, kind of maximizer. You can look at the spectrometer and shit like that. There's several things that like some modulation. They usually have a reverb and usually have a delay. As far as anything over that, PreSonus comes with everything. Like Studio One had pretty much everything you could possibly need. You wouldn't have to buy a single plug-in if you buy PreSonus Studio One. It comes with all these plugins, and now if you get the Sphere or whatever they're calling it now, you get updated of all. It's a $14 a month, but you get like as soon as their new stuff comes out, you get it. Any VST plugins like a huge baby, like grand piano that's like sampled, several gigs of sound, you just get it immediately. Now, if you don't pay your $14 or $15 a month, no plugins. No. I mean, you get the stock plugins, but you don't get all the extra stuff until you pay that money. That sucks, but there is another way around it. In this day and age, there are tons of companies that are competing for your business. There are major companies that I actually trust, like Black Rooster Audio, Waves, Plugin Alliance. There's several others that actually have like bundles or kits or packs of plugins. So it is possible if you go to all those different ones, Arturia, all these other major companies and go around and get all their plugins, you don't have to buy a single plugin at all. Between what should come with your DAW and what you get from these free places, you should not have to buy any plugin. You don't have to. Here's why I would recommend doing it. You don't tend to respect, and no offense to it, you just don't tend to respect things you get for free. You appreciate it, but you don't respect it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So, when I go to work on my music, when I go to get an EQ, all the EQs I've bought are yelling at me every time I go into that EQ folder. What the fuck did you buy me for then? What the fuck did you buy me for? You always use him. See what I'm saying? And that works out great because it proves that you know, actually, no, having a workflow is great because that way you can. I know I'm riddled with self-doubt constantly. I mean, it's just like, I mean, whatever you see or whatever, I'm a neurotic fucking mess. Inside, I'm just a neurotic fucking mess, man. Self-doubt, self-loathing, yeah, it's a mess inside. But I have to beat that shit in order to fucking produce anything. And then by the time I'm enjoying the fact that I actually defeated that and beat that, I used to have to do it by myself. And so I'm like, fuck yeah, I got it. I did it. I released an album. I fucking cut an album. I did it again. And then immediately, oh, look at Mr. Big Shot. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just immediately started beating the shit out of myself. So in that kind of sense, I mean, like I said, there's you buy these plugins and stuff, and they're just sitting there. Like if you have the free ones, it just really doesn't matter if you get 2 of them or not. What I was trying to say is that when you're first working on a song, when you are riddled with self-doubt, is this worth it? Should I keep going? Whatever. You need a dopamine hit to keep you going, to make it worth it. So have a workflow that works for you to get a good sound quick and fast and easy. But try to break up your recording and your mixing into 2 different things. Your mixing and your mastering into different things. There should be 3 stages. It should be like a recording. And in the recording stage, you might do a pre-record to see how everything is going to go. Where the intensity, where you should be building up, where you should be relaxing, where you should be whatever. So you do like a pre-recording of the song and just listen to it and see what needs to be where. This needs to go more times. This needs to be shortened up. This needs blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's like a pre-production type recording. In this day and age, there's no reason not to. If you know the song, there's no reason not to go ahead and try and sketch it out. If you're working with yourself or with other people, it doesn't cost anything. It's not like you're burning up tape. Back in the day, you're burning up tape, so it's a little bit kind of like, we need to get this shit down before we start going in there. But now you're not burning up tape, you're burning up hard drive, but even then you can just undo and delete it. So work on it. Try and get it as good as possible. Try and emote the parts. When the parts should like calm down and back off, use the volume pedal and swell off of that. Even if it's controlled by a MIDI controller. I use a MIDI controller and I control my volume. So it can roll back to at least a lightly broken up and then for the heavier. But that just gives it more dynamics built into the actual performance. So the guy running the fucking knobs and shit, he doesn't have to like slide things in. And then it fakes it. It doesn't do the same warm of like clean to evolving into that growl. Unless you have a clean sound that fades out and the heavy sound comes in. In which case it will do that. But it's just easier just to roll a volume pedal, man. It's your song. You know it way better than the sound guy. You should know your song way better than the sound guy. So learn all that shit and do that stuff. Where to go half volume, where to go full volume, where to go all the way back. It's your song. Care about it. So, but yeah, with my Line 6 pod, the reason I went with the Line 6 Pod XT Pro, one, the connectivity in the back. It allows SpeedIF, which is a direct the digital brain of the Pod XT talks directly to the brain of my PreSonus Studio One. I mean, my PreSonus 1810C. It can do stereo. All the effects in this amp, which I don't really use, it can do stereo, or I can run it dry. And therefore, the signal I'm sending into the there to be tweaked out with the amplifiers inside there comes out clean in a digital signal, strong as hell, going into my thing. It doesn't use a single track on there besides the SpeedIF, which nobody else is using. If I had a bass, I'd try and find some way to hook it up. A bass amp like it, I'd try and find some way to where the left SpeedIF was the bass and the right SpeedIF was the guitar, because you can do that through one cable. So yeah, it's pretty dope, man. It's pretty good. On top of that, like I said, when you're running the stereo, you know how sometimes when you're recording on you're using your instruments, you're using your amp, whatever, you mic it up, and then when you play it back, it doesn't quite sound exactly the same. Whatever you hear coming out of your amp through the headphone, that's what comes down to the whatever. Good, strong, solid signal. It's really impressive. SpeedIF got denied its time, and so did MIDI, but maybe I'll do another video on that. VST Plugins. Once you get a pretty good collection, some may say even arsenal, of plugins, find a company that you like. Plugin Alliance has like a mega bundle for like $15 a month. I happened to get in at a time when they're doing like, you lock in now for $10 a month, and there's like, I think it just stays $10 a month as long as you pay for it. And I've been paying for it because there's literally nothing that you need that it does not have in like duplicate and sometimes triplicate, dude. It's insane. Amplifiers, bass amplifiers, synthesizers, compressions of like, mastering compressors, regular compressors. I mean, vintage rare gear. It's insane. It's nuts. And I already had like a bunch of their plugins. So when I had that, I was like, okay, so you get to keep 3 per year at the $10 level. On the higher level, you get to keep more. But again, this is VST, so you can, if you get one instance of a compressor, you can put it on, as long as your computer can run it, on every single track. So if I get like a console strip from Plugin Alliance, like they have several console strips, like the Neve. There's a modern Neve, a past Neve. There's just a bunch of different stuff. And so if I get one of those, I can strip it across all the different tracks, right? And therefore, they all sound like they're coming out through that Neve console. Even better, through Plugin Alliance, they have you can randomize a channel. And so therefore, you can actually make it a channel. Like they got the sound of like each channel coming out, the variance, the difference between 1, 2, 3. Some of them only have to 32, other ones have to 72, whatever, 36, and others have to 72. But anyway, it goes, it's just like that subtle variation between the different things. And you can, like, as you're listening to the track play back, what I usually do is I put it to like channel 1. It has a true harmonics, total harmonics modeling, or something tolerance modeling technology, something like that, TMT. And it's supposed to increase the analogness of it. So what I'll do is I'll get the mix to sound pretty well without touching any of that kind of stuff. Through the old fashioned, is emulating that rig, and I'll get it sounding good. Then I start tweaking with the hardware stuff like that, and I start tweaking with the knob that increases the harmonics and the tolerance modeling. and that starts bringing it up. And then after I get that up, sounding like really good and really vintage or really, really analog, then I start hitting the button to pick which channel it's on, and something usually just clicks and just sounds better. You find like the drums sound better through this one console on like channels 21 and 22, or you know what I mean, or whatever the pair is. They just sound better on those channels for some reason. But it's like that with mixing boards. I mean, anyone who has a mixing board will tell you that sometimes, I mean, because of the way that they're, like I said, they're soldered, it's just this little difference. And that is the difference between analog and digital, and why even the best modelers fail. Because the best emulations are still one. You're still emulating one mixing board. Even if you get all 72 channels, you're still mixing one board. It's not conglomerated like a Neve average. You know what I mean? The average Neve sound. It'd be pretty good to do, but I understand why they don't. That's where the free plugins comes in very, 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 very nicely. Often there are free versions of stuff that you already have, because everyone wants to do some of these industry standard pieces of hardware turned into plugins. The LA2A compressor, very, very vintage, very, very studio. I won't say hard to get right, but hard to get perfect. And so everybody wants to show off how good their LA2A is. So you can end up sometimes with the free packs, you can end up with like 4 or 5 LA2As, which is cool because in a studio, you wouldn't have 4 of the same LA2As on, you wouldn't have them on every single channel. You'd have an LA2A, then you have an LA2A that you bought from like a pawn shop. Then you have an LA2A that you bought brand new, which was very expensive. Then you had an LA2A that someone gave you that needed to be fixed. And it was like a $50 to $100 repair. And you got this fucking, $500, $600, $700 compressor for free. And, you're like, hey man, you want this? It's broken. I can't figure out what's doing. I already bought a new one. You can have this one if you want to figure out what's wrong with it. And you take it to the electronics shop and it's only like, so they're all going to sound just a little bit different. And my analogy is you got all these dogs in your yard, which is fine to have all these dogs in your yard, but you want them to behave. You want them to at least sit, if not lay down. You don't want them just wandering around, fucking with the other dog shit going on, And sometimes everybody behaves except for this one dog will not sit down. He just will not sit down. You try everything you can. You do all your go-to stuff, and you just will not sit down right for some reason. Hey, man, dip into your free toolbox. Start thinking of different ways to do the same thing, or like what's causing it to not, it's too present. Well, what if you put a reverb on it that would make it kind of sink into the background and give it more of an ominous kind of feeling also? Yeah, but no. Okay, well, you can make a very short reverb and still put it like a lot of it on there, and it'll still sound like it's farther away. Yeah, that could work. Okay, that'll bring it down. And then the other things you plan on doing was blah, blah, blah. Well, instead of that EQ, try to get the free version that you have, Try high passing and low passing first and see if that just cleans it up enough. If it doesn't, then, move on to the next thing. But there's lots of ways to do stuff, which is one of the things when I'm going to do a demo of one of my mixes, and I'll show like all the plugins that I use, free and pay. I try my best to not get into a routine. This is what I use for kick drums. This is what I use for bass. This is what I use for this. I try not to. It is easy to grab it, and like I said, you need that dopamine hit. You need it to feel like worth doing and worth finishing up as quickly as possible. And so therefore I recommend having a workflow like that. But then that's just to get through the recording phase and get everything to the point where you're ready to mix it. When you're ready to mix it, then of course you're gonna go through all your VSTs and start looking through, like, can I swap this, plug this like me, I've got tons of amp sims. I've got the Line 6 Pod Farm Platinum, which also hooks to this. For some reason they don't talk to each other very well, but I mean it'd be really cool in VST format. And then I've got amplitude, amplitude 5, and like pretty much most of the expansions, minus like 3 or 4 of those. I've got amp locker and pretty much all of those expansions, and speaker cabinets. I've got, I mean, just on and on. I've got so many amp cabinets and stuff like that that there's no reason to limit yourself to whatever you want to do and print it to heart. You know what I mean? That's why I like to do a dry, because halfway through the recording process, because I'm recording the MIDI drums, I just record the performance. So halfway through, like, what if we turn the whole song like a Black Sabbath type thing? Just like totally sounds like it's from the 70s. You mean like don't use any equipment past like what, like 75? Yeah. All the amp sims we use. Nothing past, like, I mean, we can use some orange amps, some old vintage orange amps. We can do some research and make sure. And if nothing else, the foundation that we put down will be this very Sabbathy, you know what I mean, vintage sounding. We'll use the mixing board, like I was talking about the emulation, we'll use those mixing board emulations. It's nothing past 75. They're emulations, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? The drum set. Find a drum set that was made before 75. Even if it's a piece of crap or even whatever it is. Because if you listen back, some of those are not the best sounding drums. But for what they did, it's exactly right, you know? I mean, because like you know any different between that and what they actually wanted to hear. Paranoid's a great album. Whether they had exactly Tony Iommi's exact sound he wanted or whether they had, you know, it's still a great album. So, yeah, VSTs, man, it's a beautiful thing. It's really, I hate to say you guys don't know how lucky you have it, but you really don't know how lucky you have it. It's really cool that you can go ahead and, I don't have a guitar amp. Well, I've got this little dongle thing that plugs into my headphone jack, and it's got a fucking thing so I can plug my headphones in there, and then my guitar into there. And now I've got an amp on my phone or my tablet. You can just take it with you, practice quietly. You know, it's nuts. We just didn't have that kind of shit, man. It's crazy. And then on top of that, a lot of them are like free, or at least like, you know, you can find a free version to work around. So that way, I mean, it's just insane. Almost all the amps you could ever want at your fingertips, and so many of these different plugins. Like I said, when you have it, like, you know, I have Revolver, I have THU, I have THU Essential, I have Revolver 4, I have Revolver 4 Pro, I have Line 6 Pod Farm Platinum, I have, like I said, Amp Locker. I've got on and 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 on, just all these different plugins. And so basically any amp you could possibly want, I can pretty much model it, man. I can pretty much get it modeled. And if nothing else, I can get something that sounds close. And with all the drum sets I have, I mean, hundreds of kick drums, hundreds of snares, literally thousands of toms. You can just tell me, like, if you show me the sound that you're looking for on whatever, like if you can play the sound like if the drummer's soloing, I can listen to it. If I find out what kind of kit they're playing, okay, it's a Gretsch. Kind of do a little bit of research on it. Okay, I do have a Gretsch in that year around that series, and I'll pull up the thing and like, okay, yeah, that doesn't like the kick drum, the snare. No, that doesn't. Then I go, you know, as they're playing along, I'll just hit like the little snare and go through my 400 or 500 snares until I find a snare that sounds similar. Even if it needs to be pitched down or up or whatever, drag that onto there. And then the toms, I listen to him doing the fills, her doing the fills, and then just change the toms out. Then I look and see what kind of cymbals they have. If they have a deal with like, you know, Paiste, Sabian, Zildjian, I have those cymbal vaults. If they have just an eclectic collection, then I try and look, okay, you got Zildjian Big S, Zildjian Ride. I look at the different sizes and stuff and try and mimic it out. And I try also mimic the sound, so when I'm playing behind, like with them along it doesn't really, you can't really tell much difference between the two. Especially when that person stops and I keep going, it's like it's good enough. I mean, you don't want to have an exact sound anyways. You want to have that exact sound, so because that's already their sound. Without getting in the ballpark of getting the sound that you want for your song. VST drums is insane. If you had told me back in the 90s, early 90s, that I was going to basically abandon amplifiers, most effects racks, and almost all drums, and be so excited about it, I would have been like, dude, get the fuck out of here, because I hated computers. But I started messing with the drum machine, and it worked fine because I could use pads and program the drum beats, and it sounded very real and natural, and I could whatever. The one thing I couldn't do was make it sound natural. Now I can take those same beats that I had going through there, as long as I have the MIDI, just run it through BFD. And now I just choose the snare, choose the kick, choose the toms, choose the cymbals, and then bam. Sounds real. And if I need to, I can turn off the room mics, and I'd leave the overhead mics on, turn off the room and ambience mics, and then put it in a room like live room in Muscle Shoals or Sunset Studio, or I have several of them that are like, it's crazy, man. You can actually put them in different locations and it sounds really good. It's really crazy. I have that Capitol Chambers by UAD. Simply put, the best vocal reverb I have ever heard in my life, because it's based off the vocal chambers underneath Capitol Records, designed by Les Paul himself. He designed the the original 8-track tape recorder. He built that. He started with 2, then went to 4. He turned a 2-track into a 4-track, turned a 4-track into 8-track. I mean, he learned like variable sync and all these other different things that just pioneered everything that we know. He created the humbucker. He created the humbucker to get a cleaner sound. Little did he know he made the perfect pickup for doing distortion. So when he heard it, he was like, no, that's not what it's for. It's supposed to be clean. So he hated the fact that it was being used for distortion and rock and stuff. So I'm told. I mean, he may have been like, fuck yeah, but I was told that he did not like it. But he designed the echo chambers under Capitol Records because he was making these incredible records and people didn't understand how he was doing it. What he was doing was like going to like open houses and stuff where they were selling a house, and they would go through and check. He and his wife would test the rooms because there's no furniture inside. Each place has a different sound and whatever. There's hallways and different things like that, and they'd try all the different hallways and things. And if it was suitable for recording, they would check and see if they could rent it to do an album. And they'd do an album, and they'd do, instead of having, because they didn't have they didn't have a reverb pedal. This one, if you didn't actually have reverb in the room, you didn't have nothing until Les Paul came along and changed a lot of that shit. So what he did originally was just have a hallway. He put a microphone down at the end of that, and have his wife sing into the microphone here, and a microphone way down there to catch all the reverberation down the hallway. And people are like, dude, how are you getting that big luscious sound? And then you have her sing in a big room, have him sing and play whatever in a big room. People didn't know how to do it. Then he figured out how to get delay, and then by doing that, he figured out how to make a delay kind of like a pedal. I mean, dude was insanely good, man. It was nuts. And not just the Gibson Les Paul. That was his signature model of guitar, but that's not all he's known for, man. Dude's a madman. legend. You know what I mean? It's fucking crazy. Fucking crazy. Just fucking crazy. So much of what we do is based on Les Paul. So much of what we do is based on Nikola Tesla, and a lot of people don't even fucking know it, man. It's crazy. But yeah, I would recommend that you get at least one company that you trust and get their VSTs. You know what I mean? Like you get their shit and get like a good set, so that you have all the stuff you need. You're gonna need an EQ, a good powerful EQ that gives it the tone and quality you want. You're gonna need a compressor of some sort. I would recommend getting a multi-band compressor to handle your bass and stuff. That would be very good. You probably want some kind of like tape emulation that's going to help you sound more analog and get some of that digital cleanliness a little bit out there, without dirtying things up too bad. There are free ones out there, but you know you should, like I use the one that I use a lot of times is that Kive Audio, because that came with, well, I've got it, and that from Plugin Alliance. But I also have the Waves J37. I use that. I have a couple free ones I use from time to time just to vary things up. If I find myself going through the same plugins over and over and over again, I'm like, okay, you gotta stop. You gotta try something new. Why? Because you're just on autopilot, and these songs deserve a bit. Yeah, I mean, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. So take some time, go through, get rid of the one that you usually use, find the EQ of similar style, replace it. Like the Waves, I can't remember what it is. There's a VEQ4, I believe. Yeah, VEQ4. It's basically the Neve, I think 78, 76, something like that. But it's gray instead of that blue, and it's laid sideways instead of, straight up and down like a strip. So I've got a couple Neve 74s. So when it comes down to that, like I've got one couple that I paid for, and I've got a couple that are free. And so like I said, when it comes down to that one, if I find myself going for that, which I tend to do because it has like the low pass shelf, a high pass shelf, and it has all the frequency ranges that I need. Some EQs are missing positions I need, for what I do, because I know enough now that basically the general area, it'd be best to have like a very fine movement of the EQ instead of just like notch, doon, doon. You know what I mean? It just moves like that, and there's nothing you can really do about it. It'd be better if you could just slowly move it through and find the exact spot, but it doesn't have that because that's the original didn't have that. They could easily turn it off, but they didn't. So when it's just like, doon, 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 and so your notch moves like that. Again, I keep going for that one. Yank it out of there, put in a different one, see if it causes any problems. Does it cause any sound like it definitely sounds like it's out of place? No. Does it sound like it kind of blends in there a little bit better? Yeah, if I get some of that, it's a little bit brighter, so I'm gonna get some of the top end off of it. There we go. Now it seems like it sounds just like the other ones. It's like maybe like a different channel, on like a truly different channel on the mixing board, or maybe like recorded on another Neve, which is completely fine. I mean, there was a song that Foo Fighters did where they split up the overheads and the toms. So Dave Grohl, I believe, played the actual beat, and then Taylor Hawkins in another section was mic'd up, played all the cymbal work. And so there's two drummers playing this one beat. It's fucking crazy, man. But they needed like a bigger room for I think for the kick, maybe they wanted big banging, booming, but they didn't want the cymbals ringing out forever. They wanted that to be tight. I'm pretty sure this way, or is it the other way around? One of the two. So they had the kicks and everything in one room. I mean, the drum set in one room, and then all the cymbals for overhead in another room. Hey man, you know, whatever's clever, whatever gets the sound right for you. So I can do the same thing over here by just, it's got a lot of routing with the VST. That there's impossible, the shit that's actually literally physically impossible to do in reality from a drum kit that I can do on there with like no problem. If I wanted to trigger like 4 or 5 kick drums simultaneously, so it gets like a huge, poof, you know what I mean, just a dance, just poof, and I find like all the different reinforcing. Like I found one that's very that. I got one that's like very, like the very high end of it, and just mix all the different things in between. So it's just this, you know what I mean. And then fucking adjust the transients and all that stuff on all that compression and everything, so that it's just really just super beefy. So each kick is just like a fucking decimation to your chest. Just pick the same thing with the snare until it sounds like a shotgun going off. Can do that, man. Totally do that. But yeah, VSTs are a huge blessing, and I'm very appreciative that they are around. And yeah, you kids don't know how good you got it these days, but I do, and so I appreciate it. And I just wish they'd spend a little bit more time with the GUI. I get why, because I mean, again, with audio, it's more the sound than anything else. But yeah, a good-looking GUI, graphical user interface is. It's just better. You just like to use it a bit more. Just true. Just true. But yeah, there's in case you don't know, there's resources out there for free plugins. You can go to Bedroom Producer Blog. Bedroom Producer Blog. They have it. There are several companies that have free plugins. Waves gives away free plugins from time to time. You have their installer. IK Multimedia gives away a bunch of stuff for bass, guitar, drums, keyboard, bass, mix bus. They have that. They have T-Rack. There's a bunch of stuff they have. It's all free. No, it's not. You don't get everything, but like with the T-Rack's free, you can buy all the different modules you want. So here recently they had T-Rax 5, and they went to T-Rax 5 Max, and T-Rax 5 Max is several $100s. And they were having a sale where T-Rax 5 was $49. T-Rax 5 Max. That's like the Joe Ciccarelli fucking. There's so many plug parts in there that are like $99 each. There's like reverbs in there that are $99 each, and there's like 4 or 5. There's like a whole TX section of tape emulators, really good tape emulations. $100 each. I mean, and it comes with all those things, and it was $49. Yeah, I had to. And then like 2 weeks after I bought it, they announced T-Rax 6, and I was like, you know what? I don't even care, because whatever you have in there is not gonna. I mean, I just got this, so you're not gonna make me like, oh man, I should have waited. And your little thing of like, hey, if you already have T-Rax, just for $100 you can upgrade. Like, why would I upgrade anything? I'm still learning all the stuff that I have here, and it's all amazing. The only way I would do that is if like you're like increases the speed by like 500%, so that way it doesn't use as much CPU. Sorry, my footage is, but they're not doing that. I guarantee they're not doing that, because they were taking questions on Amplitude 5, and so they were showing like, or Amplitude 4, and they're showing how like the speaker cabinets in the 412 cabinet can switch out. You can have all 4 of the speakers. Like in reality, you can change all 4 of the speakers to be different speakers. Like, that's really cool. Like, is it CPU heavy? Because I'm going to need like 2 instances for the rhythm, 2 instances for the electric guitar on the outsides, and then we need another instance for the lead guitar, and then 1 instance for the bass. Completely passed me up. The next guy asked a question and said it's very simple, whatever, and so I see they're answering like everybody else. Hey, how is the CPU hit? I mean, because I need several instances in there And they just keep on passing me up every time I ask it. I'm like, yeah, because it's fucking bad, isn't it? You know it's fucking bad. Like, but for one person, you know what I mean? If you're just using one for yourself, if you're not using it for every instance on your in your mix, yeah, that's fucking perfect. It's fucking great. Same with like ultimately with T-Rax. Like if you're in the mastering phase, oh man, that thing that's where the T-Rax Max shines. But it has some really cool plugins that can be used in the VST format. But we're going on 46 minutes. Bedroom Producer blog. If you need any help on anything like that, by all means, let me know. There are EQ cheat sheets. There are reverb cheat sheets. There's, of course, YouTube tutorials on everything. You don't have to spend a dime now, but if you actually care about the thing, you should just to, like I said, to put some skin in the game, and it's going to make you go, well, why did you fucking put your money down on that? And or when you go buy it, do I really want to do this? You know what I mean? Because it's not cheap. This is $60. This was like $20. That was like $30. That's $29. This was a couple $100. That was a couple $100. This was $80. That was $80. That was $30. That was, yeah, and you know what I mean? And it just picked it. That was $400. Those speakers were $150 each. That drum set was around $1,000. Slowly but surely starts picking up and starts building up. I use cheap gear. That drum set over there, I had to build it up slowly but surely, piece by piece. Because I mean, it's. I would say the value of it is around $1,000. Whether or not I would actually get that, probably not, because it's a DM10 and that's old as fuck. But it still works really good, especially as far as triggering my BFD, which is all I really need an electronic drum kit for, anyways. So, and my Pod XT Pro, although it's very nice and does everything I need it to do, it's from like 2000. It's old as shit. Even my monitor speakers, even though I bought them new, they're the Behringer Truth 2030s. Those came out like so long ago. Sound really good. They sound great. I've been able to get some good ass mixes out of those things, but yeah. All right, so VSTs. Get you some. Not to be confused with the VDs, Valentine Days. No, that's not to be. They're not the same thing. You don't have to get checked for VSTs. You just go and pick them up, as many as you want from the free place. I will say be careful of some of the stuff out there, because I mean you gotta think if the thing is free, why are they giving away anything? No one gives away anything for free. Even if it's just to like watch what you're using, what combination, like, you know, it tells what track, and you name the track kick, and then it sends like a text file, a very small text file. It says kick had EQ, blah, 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 compressor, and blah, blah, blah. And so then it's like, okay, and that seems to be like, you know, one of your main priorities. You spend a lot of time on that, whatever, even if it's just watching that. And so, okay, so you need something that's going to simplify your kick drum process. And so they make an EQ compressor kick drum later. It's called the kick stream or something. You know what I mean? The kick stream, fucking 5,000, whatever the fuck it is. And then you get it, and it's got all your stuff that you usually use in like 4 or 5 plugins and just one plugin for your vocal chain. They see what a common vocal chain for almost everybody is, what everybody seems to use, and you can reconfigure where the compressor, where the de-esser, you know what I mean, how you want that to go. But at the end, it has like, you know, a delay and modulation and shit. That may be a price that you're paying, and or they might be key logging and watching your shit. Me personally, I don't care if they do, because I'm not doing anything, so I don't give a fuck. I'm doing this. I'm broadcasting all this shit I'm doing. Fuck. They don't have to spy on me. All right, I'm out. You guys have a good day. I don't know if I'm going to come back. I know I want to talk about black holes and other shit like that, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. I might just go ahead and go sit on the couch. I need some more edibles. You guys have a good day. Enjoy yourselves. It's a celebration, bitches. Happy Sabbath to you. Saturday's coming. Take the day off and get your ass back to work Sunday. Working for the Lord.